so I'm looking, I have to find a church.
Right.
Okay. In order to be ordained, I must receive a calling. That's how it is in the Presbyterian Church.
Okay.
Although I got a seminary degree and I passed all my ordination exams, I still have to find a church. Well, I want to do this motorcycle thing. So and every now and then I'd call my aunt back in Steelton, Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
and let her know, and then, how I'm doing on this motorcycle trip and everything. So I'm out in Arizona, and I call back, and she said, there's a church that wants to interview you. Yeah, and she says, it's in Mingo Junction, Ohio. And I said, you gotta be kidding me. I said, Mingo Junction sounds like it should be out here west, but Ohio? And so I got out, looked at it on a map. Now this is 1992, and no internet or anything like that. And I thought, I don't want to go back here. So I did some more roaming around, zigzagging. A week later, I call my aunt every week, so to speak. She says, that church called back, and it has an 800 number. And I thought, whoa. Church with an 800 number? And they want you to call and talk to a D. Kovash. Okay. So, I very politely called D and was thinking of, saying not interested.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I called, D started telling me about the church and her town and everything, and she started describing Steelton, Pennsylvania to me. Steel town, hills, football, interdenominational Catholics and things, and Slovaks, and that's my town.
Right.
I said, wow. I said, yeah. I'd be interested, and right now I'm traveling. And she says, well, how's your motorcycle trip going? I did not want to tell her I was on a motorcycle. And I said, yeah, it's going pretty good. She said, what kind of bike do you have? And I said, a Honda Goldwing. It would be better if it was a Harley. That was her response. And I thought, oh, okay. Well, anyhow, I wound up, one of the places I stopped was Angel Fire, New Mexico. Now, there is an incredible Vietnam chapel and kind of like museum memorial.
Okay.
That was built by a doctor whose son was killed in Vietnam. And so I wound up becoming friends with some of the people that were there in that area. And I thought, once upon a time, John Siney and I made promises. If one of us got killed or whatever, we'd dump a bottle of Johnny Walker Red. Well, his was Johnny Walker Red, mine was Beefeater's Gin on our graves. And so when I did my southern swing, so to speak, coming across the south, I wound up Savannah, Georgia. I bought a bottle of Johnny Walker Red, found the gravesite, and poured it on his grave and put the bottle down, wrote a little note, set beside it. And then I went back home. Back to the funeral. My friend Jimmy Stone, he had several apartments. They were small, and he had one open, so I got to stay there while I was looking for a church. And I contacted Mingo Junction Seal if they were, yes they were, and they wanted me to send them a copy of one of my sermons, so they could hear it, discuss it. So I didn't have my computer set up or anything, so I finally got everything set up, and I had the tape that I wanted to send her, cassette tape. So I did my cover letter, I hit print, and it's one of those dot matrix, and it jammed, you know, and then boom, so boom. So I finally got it to run, packed everything up, and sent it to them. And they said once they got it, they would call me. And they called and said, Mike, we got your sermon, but we got a problem. And I thought, well, I waited too long. They said, there's nothing on it. I said, what do you mean? She said, there's no message on the tape. In fact, it looks like when we received it, it was never opened. And then what I did, when I pulled the paper out of the dot matrix printer, I put it on the tape that I wanted to send, and I picked up another tape that I had right near it that was fresh and new and everything, and I sent them that by mistake. And they said, well, we still want to interview, but we're looking at somebody else right now. But you know, they set up an interview for me to come out and interview. So when I went out to be interviewed, a couple members of the committee sat around and everything. They had a boom box. Dee Kovach couldn't be there. She was on vacation.
Okay.
And they wanted to videotape my interview with them, all right? And so the guy that brought the videotape, or the boom box to me, says, I don't have a videotape. And another guy says, oh, yes, we do. Mike sent us one. so,
well, that worked out in your favor.
Yeah. Then, you know, and the thing is, that Mingo is like a carbon copy of my town of Steelton.
Yeah.
And in the church, almost identical to the layout of the Methodist church that I attended in Steelton before becoming Presbyterian.
Wow.
Yeah, it was just so ironic how things were so similar. In fact, I took pictures of the blast furnace, and I went back to my Centenary United Methodist and visited them, and I was showing these photographs, and there's one all the time. Oh yeah, I remember that, and he's naming the blast furnace, but they tore that down a couple of years ago. I said, no, they didn't, it's still gone. I said, yeah, they tore it. I'm arguing with him. I said, this is in Mingo Junction, Ohio, and man, he couldn't believe it at all, yeah. What film was filmed in Mingo Junction?
Deer Hunter.
Deer Hunter.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah.
And if you drive into Mingo,
Yeah.
the coolest thing is you will see a mural painted with deer and all that.
So, and several of my parishioners were in the movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And so, and a neat thing also, in Steelton, we had a flood, and it wiped out what we call the east side.
Okay.
Okay. And the people had to relocate, but every summer they would have a West Side picnic. And you know, I had a West Side t-shirt. And while I was there, you know, right after I was there, one of my parishioners said, we want to take you to the East Side picnic. I said, East Side picnic? Yeah. We used to have an east side, but after the last flood, all the houses were torn down and everything. And so I went to the east side picnic with my west side shirt. I mean, that's how things. Now, all right. I was in Mingo 13 and a half years. Oh, while I was in Mingo, I got a letter. Oh no, this started. No, back, okay, if you don't mind.
No, you're fine.
Back in 1981, I got a letter from the Department of Defense asking me to volunteer for the Veterans Head Injury Study Program.
Okay.
Okay. And I did, so they wrote back and said, contact the Red Cross and they'll make arrangements for an ambulance to pick you up, to take you to Middletown Airport, and we'll fly, have a medevac plane pick you up and fly you down to Walter Reed. And I said, hey, you know, how about if I drive down and get me a parking spot? And it was okay. So I went down, and you know, they just, when I walked in, it's like, wow. They you know, and they interviewed me, and as it was, I became part. There was 540 of us that they had selected for this study, and all of us had what they call partial craniectomies, where parts of the brain were removed.
Right.
And they had this program to check us out through the years to see how we recovered from our head injuries. And so I was one of them selected for this. And when, so they brought us in 2 at a time over the years. So they had all the questions that they asked everybody. So,
Yeah.
all right, I sat down with 3 doctors and they said, okay, do you remember the day you were shot? 4 October 68. Do you remember exactly what you were doing at the time? Yeah, and I told them about my hand hitting and everything. Okay, and they said, do you remember anything from the time you were shot till the time you regained consciousness? And I told them my out-of-body experience.
Yeah.
And when I was done, they're like, wow. And I said, didn't everybody? And they just shook their heads and said, no. You're the first. I was like 200 something in the pack. This is the first time we're hearing something like this. Well, anyhow, so it went through and they gave me, and it was like a week down there.
Okay.
And also they made this deal. They said if there's anything you want us to look at, you know, in addition to your head injury stuff, we'll do. Well, I was running marathons at the time, and they gave me the schedule, and I said I need some time off because I'm training for the Harrisburg Marathon.
Yeah.
And it's like, run marathons, and yeah, and I said, you know, I have this one problem, and I said, on my right or left running shoe, it's wearing out a lot more quickly than my right. You know, there's something wrong with my gait or whatever. So they set it up. They had pads with electronic sensors underneath where I would go running down the hall, run across these pads out the other door. And they checked it and they said, yeah, your left heel is spending so much more milliseconds on the ground than your right heel and things like that. And they started checking me and they said, yeah, your left is, your right leg, and they measured it, is 2.50 centimeters shorter than your left, meaning almost an inch.
Right.
And it turns out that I had a hip kind of up and turned, and it was affecting my gait. So that's how I found out about that.
Did they fix it?
Well, they couldn't fix it, but I had gone to a doctor, and he gave me orthotics with a lift that helped compensate the difference, the shortness of the legs. And so he let me go there. So, you know, and before I left, they wanted the head of the program at the time wanted to talk to me because he said he never talked. He read about these out-of-body experience, but never talked. So we had a long chat, and you know, I said, hey, you know, this is what I experienced.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm sure he was interested in that too.
Yeah. Now about that, now I'll draw it to a close here. I was left Mingo after 13 years. I went up to Toronto, Ohio. I'm still going, as far as a head injury, I went to Bethesda Naval in 2000. And then in 2004, Bethesda Naval. And again, it's a week, and
Yeah.
and at Bethesda, it was at Bethesda Naval. When I first got there, I was interviewed by Dr. Schlossinger, and he says, "Oh, I remember you from back in 1981 when you came in." And she says, "Tell my physician assistants your story." So I started telling her about the out-of-body experience. He says, "No. Tell her, what happened." I said, "Well, I only can tell her what the medic told me, telling about, getting hit in the head, helmet coming off, blood blowing out of the back of my head, the medic, giving mouth, reviving me, and then." So I told her that. So anyhow, I go through the week. At the end, right before I'm getting ready to leave, a neuropsychiatrist, was interviewing me and says, "Do you want to see a CAT scan of your brain?" I said, "Yeah." So she called, and all of a sudden this physician assistant, who I explained, was taking me over and showed me the CAT scan, and I took a photograph of it. And on the way back, she says, "Compared to the rest of the guys that we brought in here, your brain surgery is unremarkable, that they only remove a small portion of it."
Right.
She says, "What is incredible, or really remarkable, that when you got hit, and I checked your medical records, your transverse sinus was severed. And she said, you would have bled out in 6 to 8 minutes." And she said, I was part of a neurosurgery team at Geisinger Hospital when the doctor accidentally severed the transverse sinus, and it's a mess. And she said, the fact that there was this medic right there that knew exactly what to do in that amount of time, she says, that's a miracle.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no, and you said it, you shouldn't have made it through that.
Yeah.
That's...
Yeah, and and of course the medic and I got together, we play golf.
Yeah.
Every year. And then the last story, promise.
No, you're fine.
Okay. Right before I'm getting ready to retire,
Okay.
my music director and her husband lived right next to us in Toronto, Wallace Heights. Her husband dies, and he's cremated. Now, she and her husband almost every year went to Canaan Valley. They were teachers, and they'd spend the summer in Canaan Valley. This was their place, and she wanted his ashes dispersed at several locations that they traveled. Blackwater Falls, I don't know if you know about those areas down there or not.
Not really.
Oh, anyhow.
Yeah.
So my wife, Dolores, and I, Dolores Boggs is her name, and her husband's ashes, we go down there. It's last Friday in October, and wake up, and there's like 3 inches of snow on the ground. So we go over to Blackwater Falls, and there was a place, and we dispensed some of her ashes, and I did a committal service for there. And then the second one was Bounce Rocks, which was kind of like way back in the woods. And the trails were hard to follow and everything, so we're going through. And Dolores is leading because I don't know nor my wife knows. And all of a sudden we're lost. And we come out in this road. And all of a sudden I see a person walking down. And I'm thinking, well, maybe he can tell us which way to Bounce Rocks. So I started walking, and all of a sudden, I noticed it's a female. And I got within 10 feet of her. She says, "You a Vietnam vet?" I said, "Yeah." And I forgot I had a Vietnam vet hat on. And she says, "So am I." I was a nurse in Vietnam. When were you there? 1968. So was I. I said, where were you stationed? Dongtown. I said, you're kidding. I was in Dongtown. I said, I got shot in plane of reeds. They took me to Dongtown and flew me up to 24th VAC. She said, I was stationed up at 24th VAC and they sent me to Dongtown. I said, I just read in the Legion magazine that the 24th VAC is having a reunion at Branson, Missouri. I said, why don't we go to that? And she said, all right, so we exchanged, she didn't email, so we exchanged dresses and everything. Yeah. And well, and I'm talking to my wife about going there, going to 24th VAC, and so I called the guy that had his name in the Legion, and I said, hey, I was never a member of 24th VAC, but I was one of your patients, and I'd like to request your reunion to give thanks.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. So, in the meantime, I'm writing back, she's sending me photographs and things like this, and of her back then. She was cutie pie too. I mean, it's, yeah. And, man, I wish I can't pull the guy's name, but it'll come to me. Anyhow. I can't think of it. It'll come. This is the problem with dyslexia and getting old. But a really nice guy. Anyhow, he calls me back several days later and says, are you a reverend? I said, yeah. It came up on my phone machine, a Reverend Mike Bongart. And he says, how would you like to do the invocation at our banquet reunion? I said, that'd be great, because, I can thank everybody. Super. Thank you. So I wrote back and talked, and I mentioned the guy's name, and she wrote back and said, there was a guy that worked in pharmacy that gave me a little blue bottles to decorate my window. And I wonder if this is the guy. But then she said, I can't go because my husband is a college professor, and he's got courses and everything. And it really ticks me off I can't pull this guy's name right now. But anyhow. So, when Susan and I went out to the reunion, we checked in and all that, and I asked for this guy's name. And standing right over there, I went over and I introduced myself. I said, "You still want me to do the invocation?" Absolutely. You're in the bulletin and everything. And then I mentioned a nurse's name that I had met.
Right.
And he looked at me and says, I've been trying to find her for years. I've been all over the internet and everything. And I said, I have her name. I got her address. I got her phone number.
Yeah, that's all.
And he started saying everything about how nice and, the relationship. And then he said, I'm going to tell my wife about this. Well, anyhow.
That's cool. It all happened by happenstance, too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what's neat about that whole story.
Yeah. And then, so the night that I explained, thank everybody, and the doctor that operated on me had deceased, and I said, and I'm looking for the African American white scrubs that pulled me, rode me out of the ICU ward, rolled me out of the ICU ward, and Julie was the nurse's name.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, Julie, if you hear this.
Julie is Zarkman.
Julie, if you hear this.
Yeah.
I didn't forget.
Yeah, Julie Zarkman. And Charles, and he says, Watertown, New York, too. That's where he's from. Anyhow, I could kick myself. I should have checked this.
That's all right.
Anyhow, so I thanked everybody, and the following day, sitting at the table, I'm showing people the videotape of the camera from the 8 October ABC News and things like that, and this woman comes and sits beside me, and she says, you know, I was a nurse in AR the following year after you, and she told me about they brought a guy in that had an out-of-body experience and everything. And I said, you want to hear about mine? And so I told her. So she reaches in pocketbook, hands me her business card. She's the president, Diane Cochran of the International Near-Death Studies Association, INDS, Near-Death Studies. And she said, I would like for you to write up your near-death experience and send it to me, because I would like for you to come down and share it with our conference that we're having down in San Antonio next year. So one thing led to another. I gave Derek a copy of the magazine. They put my near-death study in, and but the cute thing is, when she got up to leave the table, she looked at me and she said, by the way, no one wore white scrubs in Vietnam.
That's strange.
So here I are, 2021.
Still going.
Tell my story.
Yeah, but the thing is, you're still helping vets, which is great. You're still helping vets.
Yeah.
Every day. Mike's one of our commissioners, as I mentioned in the beginning.
And it's an honor to do so, too.
And it's an honor to work with you.
Yeah. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Hey, listen, it is a great story, and I'm glad that I got to listen.
I told you it'd be longer than Jack.
You beat Jack, so.
And I'm sorry, you know.
Nothing to be sorry about. No, this is what we want to do with this, so we're happy to have you, Mike.
Well, thank you.
But on that note.
Thank you for putting, I didn't realize that time flies when you're flying.
It does, so I don't even know how long we are, but yeah, we're up there.